Welcome back, guys. Back on the Jeep again. Had a few of these in a row. Today I'm going to work on some paint finish. Worked on this dent a little bit last time, and it's pretty good. It's not perfect. I'm never going to get it perfect. I'm just not that good, but it's good enough for now. And so now I want to clean up the finish on the Jeep here. It's got some little bit of dings, some scratches, a lot of swirl marks from washing. You know, it gets dirty and it's hard to get that totally clean, and I don't think it was particularly well taken care of by the previous owner. I've washed it already, so now let's get on to clay bar and get the finish cleaned up. And then we'll get the polisher out and we'll see if we can make it look pretty. I know there's a lot of reflection here, but even with that, and maybe even especially because of that, you can see a lot of the fadedness of the paint here. You can see a lot of little scratches, spots where you've had, you know, like bird droppings and bugs and stuff that kind of eats away at your clear coat and dulls the finish, plus some scratches and swirl marks, and everybody's car gets like this eventually. I'm gonna end up doing the whole car, but for now I'm just gonna focus on the hood for the purposes of this video, and let's see if we can shine this up a little bit. I'm gonna get some tape and we'll mark off half, and then we'll clean one half and kind of get a before and after comparison, and then we'll finish it up. And I'll show you clean up, clay bar, and then polish, and then final detailing. Get the best shine we can. It won't be perfect. It is a 10-year-old vehicle. It's got some stuff in it that I don't have the initiative to sand and get out, but we'll see how far we get with just some basic detailing. You'll be surprised the difference it'll make. Whenever you do this, the first thing is get it a good cleaning. Make sure you get all the dirt and grime and bugs as much as you can off before you dig into it with that fine wash, because otherwise you're just going to eat up all your clay or your towels, or you're going to go through a lot of stuff. So you want to make sure you get it as clean as possible with, pressure washer or just a bucket and hand wash. Get as much of the big stuff off as you can. I've done that already. So now this is sort of some fine cleaning, because you get some water spots and some dirt, you wash it outside and then stuff falls off the trees onto it. And so now we're going to kind of wipe it down with some basic spray. And before I get too far into this, I probably should start by saying, as usual, this is not the way to do it. This is a way to do it. When it comes to detailing, there are certainly some very technical components to this, things to do and not to do. Within that, though, there's a lot of variability and a lot of different ways to do this. There's a lot of ways to skin this cat. You don't have to do it exactly this way. I'm just going to kind of go through what I do, why I do it. You can decide for yourself what you want to do. I also have a particular set of products that I really like. I've used a lot of different products, and I've grown to really like one particular company more than others. It's not that those other companies are bad or that the products aren't good. I just kind of grown fond of this one. And I'll kind of give you a little bit as to why that's true too. But you don't have to use these products. You don't have to use specifically the type of product that I'm using or the brand, certainly. Use whatever you think works best for you, whatever you can find at your local store or get a good deal online, or however it is you decide what products you want to use. There's a ton of them out there that I'll do pretty much the same job, and I'll do it really well. So I'm just kind of going to walk through what I do. In this case, when I am going from a filthy, dirty, beat up car to trying to clean it up and get it as nice as possible. So this is a sort of a correction. This isn't a maintenance thing. I do something different on the maintenance thing, and I'll talk about that in a little bit as well. So I've washed it by hand with a multi-bucket system, a foam cannon. Again, you can just wash this with whatever you want. You're going to do this whole, if you're going to do this whole polish, and then when you're done, you're going to have to put some more finish back on. Then use whatever you got. Use Dawn soap if you want. Like I wouldn't, but you just got to get the crap off it first. Now we're down to it's clean, but it's not clean. It's still got some residual chunks. I say chunks, like fine dirt, fine small amounts of drips from the tree that just don't come off from a basic wash. Like you could scrub them off, but in the process of scrubbing them off, you're gonna, really kind of grinding into the paint. So a basic wash isn't gonna get everything off. Now, if it's pretty clean to begin with, and this is a maintenance wash, then oftentimes for most of the year, particularly if you're somebody who parks your car in the winter, if you live in a cold weather climate, you don't have to do a lot of this stuff very often. just a regular wash will get all that stuff off because there isn't that much on there to begin with, and you have enough of a good finish that stuff doesn't stick real well. The other thing, when you have all of these different little tiny micro scratches in your paint, they do add texture to the paint that, although you may not be able to feel it, it does make things stick to it easier. Those little drips from the tree or droppings from a bird, or even water spots, like the water, you want the water to kind of run off, and if your surface doesn't have that hydrophobic finish on it, stuff is going to stay on that texture and bind to it, and then it just sits there and sits there and sits there, and then it becomes really hard to get off. So I've got it basic cleaning, so now I'm going to do kind of a fine cleaning and see if I can get a little more off with some wash. What I have here, I use a product called Adams Polishes. I'm not sponsored by them. I don't make any money from them, so I've been using Adams for years. We do not have any kind of partnership. I know I've met the owner. I really like him. We talked a bit. He's a good dude. I believe they're out of Colorado, and really like the products, and I've had great success with it. And I've tried some other products and had okay success. They're a little bit more expensive, and it used to be you had to order them direct, but now you can get them on Amazon. I think AutoZone or one of the big box parts stores, auto parts stores, carries it in their detail section. So they have some local resellers, different places you can get the products, and sometimes you can get them at a decent little discount, and they offer some good periodic deals. So I'll throw a link to their website down below. Look them up. I'm a big fan of theirs, but like I said, I don't get any money from them. Feel free to buy whatever you want. This particular product, this blue one here, this is called their waterless wash. So it's sort of if you're familiar with detail spray at all, it's kind of a mix. It's kind of a hybrid between detail spray and then just regular washing. So you don't need spraying a bunch of water, put a bunch of soap on, get a bunch of water off. This is really good for a maintenance wash, particularly if you're one of those people that go to car shows. And you drive some distance to the show, and it's maybe out in the grass, and you just wash your car, and now it's all dirty. Or dusty, anyway. You can certainly use one of those California dusters to get the dust off, but this works really well to get it nice and shiny. And it's a little thinner, goes a longer way. The detail spray, you can go through detail spray pretty quick. And it's a little cheaper. I know some people who make this. They take some regular detail spray and dilute it 50%. So half water, half detail spray. If you can find it, get good distilled water, something that's not going to have a bunch of minerals in it. It came in a big gallon because it's cheaper that way, so I just got a bottle that doesn't have any writing on it, and probably should write on there so I don't forget what it is, but I think it's the only thing they have in blue. Before I get started though, since we're doing this kind of comparison, I'm going to tape off right down the middle, and so I'm going to do that side of the hood closest to you, and then we'll see what it looks like before and after. You don't really, if you watch a lot of detailing, like professional detailers, they will put this tape on. I've always wondered if it's really that important, and I don't think that it is, to be honest. It is helpful when you want to see where you've stopped and see where you're going, so you don't overlap too much. You really want to do this in small sections. So it keeps you from getting too crazy with how big a space you're going, because some of the stuff will dry on you, especially if you're doing this outside in the sun, and then it's really hard to clean up. So it can be helpful to tape off a section, focus on that section, be done with that section, move on to the next one. I'm just doing it just to kind of get that view, that before after. Now if you go through the instructions for the waterless wash, and they have a specific towel, which I have here. That's not required. But this waffle towel works a little better to get things clean versus a regular microfiber cloth. You don't need a lot. There's a tendency with this stuff to get real crazy with it. My personal experience with it is you don't need a lot. They say when you use this in general, so think about this as a maintenance type wash, go in one direction. There's a tendency, we all have this tendency to kind of wipe like this. You should wipe as much as you can in one direction, straight. If you do put any kind of micro scratches in your finish, straight ones are easier to get out than swirly ones. And the swirly ones are also easier to see. Just go one way. And then kind of flip your towel over and wipe again. I can already feel, you'll feel this when you do it. I can already feel the texture. You can feel the dirt under the towel. Obviously there's some places where you're gonna have to get in there. You can't just like nice and easy wipe. Like around these little nubs, around these hinges, stuff like that. But best you can. I'm just doing this for demonstration. I'll be totally honest with you. I haven't actually spent that much effort. There's some stuff that's really caked on. that much attention, I should say, going that held back and forth thing. I don't know how. Also, don't hit yourself in the face with a wiper. So you just want to get it nice and clean. It doesn't have to be totally dry. You can almost hear it. I don't know if you can hear that. Just like you're wiping on dirt. We'll move on to clay bar. So the clay bar will get some of that ridged, real like textured surface. Get that smooth. Anything that can come loose will. So usually clay bar just comes in a bar of clay, just like it sounds. Again, this is Adams. I got it in a package deal. I bought one of those kits. Came with a bunch of stuff. Although I do like Adams, and Adams clay bar is good, I'm not real brand specific on clay. I don't find it to be that different from one brand to the next. Your mileage may vary here. Try some different ones. Start with the cheaper one though, like I would. I've used the Meguiar's one. It's not terribly expensive. You can get it at even Walmart. You know, you can get it anywhere that sells detailing, car detailing or car wash products. You can get it. What I found the big difference between the really good clay versus the lower end clay, it's just how long it lasts. The better clay just seems to be more malleable and you can reuse it easier. But it all works, so it doesn't have to be that specific. I did throw some gloves on, and now that we have it nice and clean, or as clean as we can get it anyway, I'm trying to eliminate me putting any more contaminants onto the finish from my hands, including oil from your hands. Fingerprints, handprints. Some of the stuff can be kind of an irritant to your hands. Designed for car finishes, not people finishes. And smell funny with all these different things have a scent to them, and then they all combine into your hands and you feel like it's on. So sometimes you just put gloves on because you can see this is, by design, pretty sticky. So you just want to kind of, what they say, knead this. Knead with a K, right? Just kind of work it a little bit. You want to keep it about the size of your hand. The other thing you can do, you can break this apart, and that's actually what I'm going to do. I'm going to just take about half of this clay because I'm only doing a small section. Just kind of knead this out and get it nice and smooth and flat. Once you crack that bag open, if you want to save part of it, throw it in like a Ziploc bag or something. It will stick to the bag, but you know, that's okay. You're just going to peel it back out anyway. Take some detail spray. You can use the waterless wash if you want, but the detail spray works a little better because it's a little bit thicker. A little bit more viscosity to it, so what you want is a lubricant. So this doesn't, because it'll stick. You're going to slide this around, and it's not going to slide because this will dry out. We're just going to do half of this right now, just a smaller section, and I will spray the clay as well. Don't have to. That's not in the instructions. Just something I like to do. I feel like it makes it much slipperier. And you're just going to wipe on it. Wipe on the surface. Again, like the wiping with the towel, try to go one direction as much as you can. I find that getting it, swirling it around in circles doesn't really make it any better. It only risks making it worse. But what I will do, I'll go back and forth one way. So I'll do what you might call a crosshatch. So I'll go back and forth one way and then go the other way. So you can already see it's pulling a lot of contaminants off that. If you see that, there's a piece there and some there, and then there's just kind of a brown hue to this. This car's been washed twice. So that's the stuff that the car wash just doesn't get off. So you don't want to keep rubbing that on your paint. So you fold this over. And you just kind of fold all those contaminants into the inside and flatten it back out. So that's how you can reuse it. Now eventually you're going to run out of clay that doesn't have a contaminant in it. And that's okay. That's when you throw it away. But I've actually used clay. I don't know that probably the instructions would tell you this. I have used the same piece of clay on multiple washes weeks apart. So it isn't just that it's reusable on the same car. I've just thrown it in a bag. Actually, I think I wrapped it in cellophane to keep the air out of it, and throw some detail spray on it, wet it back up, and use it again on a different car. You shouldn't have to clay bar. So get a little bit, but not as much. You should not have to clay bar that often. Now, some of the stuff I'm going to feel is actually chips in the paint. So they're not going to wash off. They're not bumps, they're dips. There's not much I can do about that today. That's a different process. That's not detailing. That's requiring some wet sanding and some real heavy duty polishing compound, and that was not what I'm into today. Before it dries out, get another towel, just wipe the detail spray off. And you can see now, when I said before, why some people put some tape down and do it in small sections, and see how I did that small section. Now this is wiping kind of all over. And it's rather hard to determine where did I clay and where did I not. That's where do it in small sections and taping it off is helpful. But I'm going to overlap a little bit. I don't really care that much because this is really just for demonstration. Sometimes you'll feel it. You'll actually feel it smooth out. Like you can feel it hitting stuff and all of a sudden it smooths out. See? Some more. It's hard to know for sure when this has had enough. My general rule of thumb, as I'm continuing to roll this and knead it back out into flat, is when I can't get rid of, when it's not a consistent color, and I can't make it a consistent color. When you're seeing swirlies in your clay, and you can't get rid of them, then for me, that's about the time that I say, you know what, maybe it's time to get another piece of clay. Again, your mileage may vary. When that happens, when you feel comfortable with it, is up to you. But if you're really going to put all this effort into trying to get these swirl marks out of your paint, you hate to put them back in with the clay you're trying to take the contaminants off with. You're just making more. I don't make a career out of this. I'm not doing this for hours on end. That's it. Some will do this for a long time. Make sure you get every tiny speck of contaminant off your paint. And that's good. I mean, I applaud that. I get why somebody would want it. I just think it's a, what'd you call that? A lost cause, a fool's errand. Wild goose chase. I don't know. It ain't happening. That's what I would say. You're never going to get it totally clean. Not unless you live in a bubble. So we've clayed it. It's as smooth as we can get it. And it actually is, I know you couldn't hear this before, but you can rub your hand across this and you can feel it. So when I rubbed my hand across it before, it felt dirty. Now when I rub my hand across it, it feels smooth. And now I move on to polish. Now I'm sure this will shock you to learn that my polisher is also from Adams. No particular reason other than the best value polisher I could find. I trust them as a company, so I trust their equipment instead of buying a cheaper one on Amazon that probably does the same thing. So again, I'm not saying you got to buy the Adams version, but what's nice about this type of polisher, so Adams or not, is it's sort of a random orbital polisher. So it moves multiple directions. It doesn't rotate. So a rotational, like you put on a drill, or you have those two-handled ones where it's just a spinning polisher. This one rotates and sort of wobbles. It rotates this way, and it really kind of vibrates all over. So it's almost vibrating, not spinning. The disadvantage is that, if you would say so, is it's a little slower. It doesn't cut quite as fast. Now, I don't have a real heavy-duty cutting compound, and a heavy-duty cutting compound would cut faster. I have kind of a basic one-step, what they call a one-step polish. But the rotational ones cut much faster. The problem with those rotating polishers is they actually cut too fast, and they can burn through your finish if you're not careful. So you have to be careful not to sit in one spot for too long, because it will actually burn right down through your finish. So for an inexperienced person, that can be real dangerous. Now, they're much cheaper, and they're much faster. So I'm not saying you can't use them. I just like this because it takes some of the risk away. You could literally set this on the paint and let it go and leave it there, and it won't do anything bad. It will only cut so far. This one also has multiple speeds. The Harbor Freight one, or at least the one they had when I bought this one, it's been a few years since I purchased this one. It was a single speed. So they may have upgraded. Again, go do your shopping, find one that works for you. So these polishers, they come with this Velcro plate. And then you buy pads. There's all different kinds of pads. You have foam pads. There's different colors. Those usually have different cutting aggressiveness, I guess I would say. You look it up, like I think this one says one of these is for like 1,500 grit scratches, 2,500 grit scratches. So just for reference, the higher the number in the sandpaper, the finer the sandpaper. So with pad says it's for 2,500 grit scratches, that's really small scratches. 1,500 grit scratches are slightly bigger. 1,000 grit, slightly bigger than that. I'm going to play around with a bunch of different ones here. These are all 5-inch or 5.5-inch, I think they are, technically. You want to center the pad as much as possible, so you get as much coverage around the body of the polisher here as possible. Now, these are real close to the size of the polisher, which is fine. The smaller the pad, the easier it is to get into small spaces. But you don't have much buffer on the side of the wheel here. This is a 6-inch pad on a 5-inch wheel. A much wider buffer from the pad here to the outside, to whatever I'm butting up against. So if you're doing panels where you're going to hit up against a perpendicular panel, this can actually do some damage. And so I find a slightly bigger pad works pretty good. However, it's a big round wheel to try to get into tight spaces, and that can be hard to do. I've used these pads quite a bit. That's why they look a little dirty. They work pretty well. I'll throw a link down below of where I got them from. Adams does. These are not Adams pads. Adams does make pads that are designed for this and for the specific different polishes and cutting compounds they have. I have found there's not a huge difference, even within the ones where they talk about their different cutting, the different aggressiveness of them. I don't find them to be, I can't tell the difference. You know, some professional does this a lot, and you go through these things in, hours and hours every day, and this is all you do. I'm sure with that level of experience, you could point out for me the differences in the different pads. My experience is they're not really that different. They don't make that big a difference in their cutting ability. It's really whatever you're comfortable with. So we'll go through a bunch of the different ones. We'll get a sampling of them, show how each one works. We'll try them out. And that's what I would recommend you do. Just try some different ones and see what works for you, what you like the best. What's the easiest for you to manage, what works best on your vehicle or with a situation you have. You can use whatever polish you want. I use the Adams one-step polish. They do have a two-step system with like a cutting compound and then a finish polish. Some of them have a multi-step process. There's a bunch of polishes out there. They all kind of do the same thing. Again, part of the reason I have this is because I bought one of these, mystery boxes they sell, and it came with a bunch of stuff, and this came in it. I have used other polish. The McGuire's polish actually works really well. Chemical Guys has a polish that works really well. So you don't have to match polish to pad or polish to polisher. There's a lot of those companies will tell you do. Like Adams has a one-step polish with a one-step polishing pad that goes with it. It's not. It's just a generic pad. It's a generic polish, it's a generic pad. Now when you have a cutting compound, then you use a cutting pad. You have a polishing compound, you use a polishing pad. So that's where you would go into these different, if I was using a real aggressive polish, I would use a foam pad to start with. Then I would come back with a finish polish with a finish pad. But in this case, this is kind of a one-stop shop. So I'm going to do that. You do want to keep things lubricated, just like with the clay bar. You want to keep things lubricated so you don't generate too much heat, doesn't stick too much, just makes it easier to work with, and wet the surface. So again, just like before, actually I'm going to start out here in the front. I find the polisher works a little easier in squares, so instead of going side to side like I did before, I'm going to go front to back with the square. Wherever your polish is, you want to shake it up. It's got like material in it that's going to be abrasive, and that material and the liquid tends to separate. So shake it up, mix it back up again. And you don't need very much of this stuff. That's the other reason I do like theirs, is it doesn't take very much. So you just take a little like dollop there, just a little bit. And then you put this on and you just kind of smear it around. Probably overdid the detail spray a little bit. Just not smearing quite as good. I have if you use a polisher like this, just is safe enough. Don't do this with a rotary polisher, but you can just set this on here and turn it on. Because if you hold it up in the air and turn it on, it's going to fling stuff everywhere. So I keep it on the surface. I did use too much detail spray because it's flinging detail spray everywhere. So I'm going to turn this speed down a little bit. And you're just going to go just like with the clay bar. Go side to side, front to back. Side to side, front to back. So keep a single direction. You're not going to go in circles. Let this do the circles for you. Easy back and forth with a slight overlap. I do about maybe a 30 or 40% overlap. And just work your way across, nice and slow. The slower you go, the more it will cut. Another nice thing about these polishers, because I'm just one-handed. I can do it two-fingered. You know, it's not going to run off on me. Like I said before, I can just leave this here. It's never going to damage the paint. Now, if you want to cut a little more, you can grab here and give it a little pressure. It will cut a little faster. Whenever you're stopping, for whatever reason you're stopping, don't set the polisher down face down, because then you just, wherever you set it, it's just going to pick up stuff off that surface. So set it on its back, it stays as clean as possible. You can do this however long you want, and stop and check and see how it's going. And if you still see more stuff you want to get out, then you just keep polishing some more. And I do see it's not quite, this was bad. A little detail spray can help clean that polish off. Now again, this one's not going to be perfect. There's some pretty deep scratches in this surface. It's just not going to come out with this basic polishing. What I'm most worried about is there's some dulled finish here, probably from either a bug or a bird poop. By the way, bug guts and bird crap is very corrosive to clear coat. So if you have those on your surface of your paint, you want to get them off as soon as possible. Otherwise, you're going to do this. Hard water is another one, creates water spots. So if you've got real hard water and you wash your car by hand, or you go to the car wash, by the way, don't ever go to a regular car wash. That's just going to put swirls in your paint. Every farmer that runs his truck through there and gets dirt and mud and crap all over those brushes inside the car wash, and then you turn around and go back behind them, it's just grinding all that dirt into your paint. So I would avoid the brushed car washes. The brushless one isn't so bad. Do-it-yourself isn't so bad. Never use that foam brush that's in the do-it-yourself car wash. Same deal. You know, Farmer Pete just washed his tractor with that thing, so I'd stay away. But I can still see some fading and some swirls. Again, so I'm more worried about trying to get the little micro scratches. And if you look at the surface of your paint, you'll be able to tell what I'm talking about. There's big scratches that everybody can see. And there's some, when you look at it in the right light, you just see like just a mess of little scratches. And that's usually what happens when you when you look at it and it looks like it's faded. That's usually what it is. Obviously, it may fade at some point, but most of the time, particularly on a newer vehicle, when it looks faded, it just means it's kind of swirled up and not quite as shiny, because the surface is textured and those little scratches will refract light, and so it doesn't get the nice clean reflection that you'd like to get out of a perfect finish. So we're going to hit it again. So when you want to go round two on this, you don't have to put more polish on. I don't know if you can see it on camera, which actually you can still see there's little polish dots are still in this. So I'm just going to smear some more polish on. See how I didn't spray it this time. I'll spray the pad. But we're just smearing out some more polish over the surface. And particularly it's bad around these bends. Now be careful on an edge, because even though this won't burn your paint, those edges can get a little over polished because you're just riding over that edge the whole time. So try to get up to an edge, but not on the edge. I will, though, hit the pad again, just to give it a little cooling spray. So we'll go round two here. Let's speed it up a little bit too. You can use that waterless wash too. Anything that just gets this a little wet, even if your towel you used the last time is still wet, then it's probably good enough just to kind of get that polish off. You want to get that polish off fairly quick. It's not a critical thing. If you're outside in the sun, it's definitely more critical. By the way, this is another tip. Much as you can avoid it, you shouldn't do this stuff in direct sunlight because the sun, especially on a black car, if you ever washed a black car in the sun, you can see it steam. The surface gets so hot from the sunlight that it will bake this stuff on, and then it's really, really hard to get off. So I think we'll move to the back here. It's good enough for now. Like I said, we've got some good sized scratches here. I just don't think I can polish them out. Not with the type of polish I have. It takes an aggressive, and kind of a test of that, and these aren't so bad actually, no, that one is. If you can catch the scratch with your fingernail, you can't polish that out. Because you're taking off microns, like microscopic layer of clear coat. So if your fingernail will catch in a scratch, it's too deep. You'll have to sand that. So you'll have to do some wet sanding and get that scratch out. And hopefully it's not below your clear coat and into your paint so that you can, then you'll be able to buff it back out to smooth again. But I'm not doing that today. Like I said, maybe that'll be another day. All right, so we've done to here. So now we'll go back here. This stuff can be kind of difficult to work around. That's why I started here first. They do make, Adams does as well as some others, a polisher that's about half this size. And that's nice for getting up places like this on your frames. That can work really well, but then you're buying 2-3 polishers. So I just stick with the one. When I do change sections, I will put a little more on, not very much. The other thing I haven't been doing it, and I should be, is put the cord over your shoulder so your cord isn't banging against your car. I'm seeing this now kind of come in and fade out, like it's getting a little dry. Just spray this. Get this wipe clean here. See what we got. Better. Not quite there yet, I don't think. I think it's going to take another round. You can see, get the light in there. You can see these lines here, and then these fat, kind of faded spots. A particularly bad spot I'm trying to smooth out. All right, let's give us a little more on this half here. Not quite there yet. I'm starting at the top here on the hood because it's kind of easy to film and do a demonstration. But also, if you're doing the whole car, do top down. So in this case, I'm leaning across this, right? I'm putting my shirt and shorts and whatever. I mean, maybe you got jeans on, belt buckle, over top onto the, to reach all the way up here to the middle. And I'm a tall guy, so especially if you're, an average height person even, let alone a shorter person, you're gonna have a hard time reaching up here without leaning against the car. And so then you're just gonna put imperfections and scratches and stuff right back in your paint while you're working. So start at the top, and then you can work your way down. Stay off your finished product here. But I'm gonna work on that up there just a little more. So I've used this towel enough now that it's got a little bit of, you know, detail spray still in it, so it'll clean this off without spraying more, and you don't want to waste it. Next is I'm gonna throw some wax on. That's actually taken minute, you know, microscopic amounts of clear coat off. So before I can do that, it's got to get through the wax. So there's no wax on this now. There's no finish protectant on here. So we're gonna put some protectant on. When it comes to wax, there's a infinite number of options here. There's waxes, there's sealants, there's glazes, there's spray wax, liquid wax, carnauba wax, paste. It runs the gamut, and they all have their value. It just depends on what your application is and what you want from it. So the simplest is the spray wax. There's not much in here because I've actually used it quite a bit. It's a very thin wax. It's very easy to use. Spray it on, wipe back off, and you're done. Move on. And doesn't really provide much protection other than UV protection and water. So water will beat up, not as good as some others, but it wears off really fast. A couple of car washes and this stuff's off. But it's relatively inexpensive and it's super easy to use. The next option is like a liquid wax. This is from Adams. It's a buttery wax. This is just their terminology for theirs. It's got a nice scent to it. It's a little bit thicker. It's on an applicator. Wipe it on. You can do it with a machine polisher as well, and then wipe it off. This is a nice product. I like this. This is one I actually use the most often because it's real easy to apply and it's real easy to wipe back off, and it creates a nice protectant finish. Again, not as long as some others. You do have to do it a little more often, but it's super easy to use. And it does give you some UV protection and a little bit of additional, you know, hardening protection, but not a lot. Keep in mind, most waxes aren't going to do that. So you maybe have heard of things like ceramic coating. Ceramic coating is a little different than wax. It's harder than wax, and you only have to do it depending on, there's different levels of ceramic. Some are 1 or 2 years, some are 5 year, and I think there's even a 10-year. Those are generally done by a professional. That's really hard to do at home, but they do provide a much better protection, better finish, much better UV protection. If you have a pristine vehicle, like a brand new car, and you're debating on whether to get it ceramic coated to keep it looking brand new for a long time, if you've got the money, go do it. Once you get to the point here where it's pretty, this is not perfect, well, ceramic coating this is not worth it. It's actually rather expensive. This is a 10-year-old car. That horse has left the barn, right? So we're not going to do that here. The other one is a brilliant glaze. Now, I don't do this very often. I use this a little bit. This is more for a show car. So this doesn't provide much protection at all. At least in my experience with it. You can build it up though, and it will add more shine, more shine, more shine, more shines. It'll really shine everything up. So if you've got a car you're showing and you want it to look pretty, then this stuff is great. But that's about all it's good for, is to make it look pretty. If you're trying to keep it protected and for your daily driver, I don't use this very much. We've got a Chevelle we throw in car shows, classic car shows once in a while. It looks really nice. I'll use this on that, but not on my daily drivers. The other one, I don't actually have any of it because I use it all up, is a carnauba wax. That's the old school traditional wax, a paste wax. You've probably seen your dad or your grandpa or whatever use it. I've used it when I was younger as well. And it's still around, and it's still really good. Adams makes one that's real good. It's rather pricey. Any place you go to that has car wash stuff has paste wax. That will give you the best protection. It may not give you the best glossy finish, the prettiest finish. It sometimes can be a little hazy, and it's rather hard to work with. It's pasty. You got to put it on. You got to get it off rather fast. It takes a bit of elbow grease to get it off. And from my experience, it tends to leave a slight haze behind. But if you want to have the best protection from bugs, even a little bit of ding, like, because it puts a thicker layer on, so small sticks or little rocks or something, if it's, you know, glancing blow, that can save you a lot. It's real good water protection, easy to clean after it's done, but it never gets real super shiny. The shinier the finish you're going to get out of whatever you're using, again, outside of ceramic coating, the less protectant it actually is. It's more for looks, less for function. But this one, I find this buttery wax to be, for me, again, that sweet spot. So I'm going to use this. I am going to put it on by hand just to show you what putting it on by hand looks like, since that's what most people will have to do. Just like with that polish, you want to shake this up too. You don't have to use very much. It won't hurt to use too much if you happen to use too much, other than you just waste it. I'm going to do this whole thing all at once. Just going to wipe it on nice and even, get a good thick coating, let it sit for a couple of minutes. You'll see it when it kind of hazes over and the wetness goes away and it dries out, and then come back and wipe it off with a cloth, and then I'll come back and detail spray at the end of it to clean off the last bit of stuff. I do go in circles with this. And same, like I said, it doesn't hurt anything to use a lot, but it is wasteful. So no sense wasting money. And if you get to the end here and you start to see that you're not really putting it on very thick, or you're not happy with how thick you're putting it on, you can always put more on. Right? You can just stop. Add a little, come on, come out. There you go. Add a little bit and keep going. The other thing to keep in mind though, when you put more wax on, the more wax you put on, the more wax you got to take off.
That's on. That's off.
And the harder it will be to do so. And then some of these spots, you're just going to wipe it in there like this. Like you're not going to be able to get in there in a swirly motion. So just do your best. You'll be able to see in some of the spots, like right here where I actually put it on a little thick, that's going to take a little longer to dry. Spots up here where it got thinner, that's going to be faster to dry. But generally, when you go, like I went from front to back, and then I'll go back here and clean it off from front to back, and that allows this little extra time to dry. It doesn't need a lot. Same deal with the sunlight, right? Don't do this out in direct sunlight. But that's what I like about this Atom stuff, is they actually have some sort of voodoo sciencey thing they put in there that makes this a lot easier to do outside. That was my original draw to them, was their car wash. If it dries while you're washing, you wash one side of the car and then you go to the other side, and the first side you wash dries, it still rinses right off. So most of the soaps, the cheaper soaps, they'll dry and leave spots behind, and then you got to do all this polishing to get them off. The Atom stuff, you could leave it on there. I left it on there for an hour and just took the hose and washed it off. So that's pretty good stuff, and that's what kind of drew me to them in the first place. I'm going to go back to the towel that had the polish on it, since it's already kind of got some material on it. And then I'll come back with a final wipe down with the clean towel. So this was really only like 2-3 minutes, I didn't wait 10 minutes, 15 minutes. When I say a few minutes, it's a few minutes. Now I'll go back to my new clean towel and get the last little bits off. And I will hit it with a little spray. The spray kind of adds that final shine to the wax. Yeah, so I can still see some pretty bit like this. There's what I thought was a smudge, but it is a scratch right here. It's not so bad until it gets to right here. And then there's one here. I don't know if you can hear that or not. You could definitely feel it and hear it click when I get my fingernail across it. So that'll have to be sanded out and possibly repainted, a touch-up paint maybe. And then this area back here, if I hit more with a polisher, might come out. But once you get to right there, I can definitely feel that with my fingernail. So this isn't gonna be perfect, right? It's got some scratches in it. I'm not trying to take those out. Okay, we've cleaned it, clayed it, polished it, and now we've put a wax finish back on and protected it. So now let's get lined up here in the middle. We'll take this tape off and you can see left side versus right side. Once you peel the tape off, you can see, now ignore the tape line because obviously there's some dirt and stuff that got up to the edge of the tape, but polished, unpolished. Pretty dramatic with not a lot of effort. It was a little bit of time, granted, but that's how you use a polisher to clean this up. It isn't perfect, but it's really good. If it was a better state to begin with, it would look even better now than it's done. So you can make this improvement just from this. And we could keep working on this and get it even better, but like I said, it's a Jeep and I'm pretty happy with it, and so I'm not that worried about it. I just wanted to clean up that haze. A lot of wear and tear, and it shined up pretty good. There's a lot more we could do. Like I said, we could wet sand, we could do some more stuff. Maybe I'll do another video on that and do do some real like deeper paint correction. You can see it does take a little while though. There's multiple steps. It does take some patience and a little bit of effort, not a ton. I got a little sweaty. It's a little warm in here today, and you can see, you know, given a little bit of work here, when you go pay to have your car detailed and you want them to do all this too and how much they charge for it, you kind of see why, right? Like those guys work really hard. If you don't have the money to have that done, or you want to, you know, especially if somebody like me who likes to have it, I do this a lot more often. If I had to pay to have that done 4 or 5 times a year, we have a few cars. So doing that on every car multiple times a year gets a little bit on the pricey side. So I bought the stuff to do it myself, and I'm kind of anal about it, and I kind of like doing it. There's a sense of satisfaction when you watch it go from this to that. You feel like you're accomplishing something, and I like that. I'm a little bit weird that way. Let me know if you want to see anything more about this or any particular other kind of detailing. We could do some interior, some other restoration or correction type stuff. I hope you learned a little something and maybe get your hands a little dirty and do this and clean up your car. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you guys very much. Hit that like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.